Story 1. When I was a kid, my dad worked for a company that hauled away dumpsters and at one point found an old alto saxophone complete in the box. I ended up playing it for 4 years up until high school when it was stolen. I couldn't play after that since my family couldn't afford a rental, let alone pay for a new one. Story 2. A friend of ours found two bullet-resistant vests with paramedic written across them being thrown out behind a fire station. I guess they expire or something. Story 3. Worked as a garbage man for a very short time last summer, but the best thing I found was an edition of my local newspaper from the day after the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. Story 4. My dad used to do the cleaning for a mall, and he would bring us some amazing stuff sometimes. I remember he once came back home with a backpack full of miniature toys, like the ones you find in Kinder Surprise. Another time, he brought an entire toy kitchen and some kids' magazines. I loved Les Petites Princesses. He also found a lot of stuff for our home, but I was a kid, so I remember the toys more than anything. Story 5. A lane cedar chest. I was helping my dad clean out this lady's garage, and she said as long as we were there, we might as well take that too. She said she always hated the smell of cedar, but her husband wouldn't let her get rid of it. Now that he was dead, she was sending it on its way. The veneer was never in great shape, but it still keeps my wool items safe. I've had it for over 30 years now. Story 6. My dad worked at a landfill for most of my childhood, and my brother and I both got into related companies that directly dealt with landfills for a while. One of the most common things I remember hearing about and seeing all the time was clothing with minor irregularities that had to be thrown away by the clothing company. It was stuff like Roxy, Vans, and other brands you'd see at places like Tillis or similar clothing stores. One of my old coworkers' families was basically clothed their whole life from this type of clothing being dumped. The clothing was clean or could be cleaned to a decent level that was fine to wear. It was dumb stuff like a small rip, a missing zipper, or some other weird thing they couldn't sell it with. Everyone at the landfill was basically in on the scheme. When the truck with the clothing pulled up to the fee booth, someone would radio people at the dump site, and it was like a pack of vultures. Everyone on the site would swarm the truck as soon as everything was dumped out. Story 7. My little brother was emptying out a client's basement, and everything was going to be thrown away. So my brother was told to keep anything he wanted. He saw a nice-looking bike and took it. Turns out it was a Dahan Mu P8 30th Anniversary Limited Edition and in perfect condition. From what I found on it, it goes for over $4,000. Story 8. In the 1980s, I picked up a number of Philips color televisions. I had a few, so fixing them was just a question of swapping parts. I then sold them cheaply or gave them away to fellow students. Story 9. My dad was a trash man when I was growing up. He would always bring cool stuff home to us. He used to say that the poor neighborhoods had the most trash and they threw away literally everything. The two best things I can think of were a brand new bicycle and around 20 Nintendo 64 games that he found at a video rental store. Once, at the transfer station, one of his coworkers found a dummy arm in the big pile of trash. He pulled it and it ended up being a deceased person. The police later determined that it was a homeless person who got picked up and died when the trash truck compacted him. Story 10. When I was a kid, I found a couch. It wasn't very big, but that's why it was so great. 10-year-old me was able to carry it all the way home by myself, about a block and a half. This was before kids having cell phones were common, so I didn't call my parents about it first, and they were at the store anyway. So I took the couch home and put it in my room. It was pretty dated, made of some material I've never encountered again so far, but I thought I was amazing. I had a whole couch in my room. How many 10-year-olds had couches in their room? Well, my parents came home and clearly weren't happy, but given I carried it up to the second story and got it into my room, they let me keep it. My downstairs neighbor helped me. I felt like a king. I had a couch. I had a big box television for my PlayStation. I had it all. Simpler times. Edit. So I just realized I misread the post entirely, and that this was intended for the garbage pickup people and not dumpster diving stories. My bad. Laughing out loud. Story 11. I worked as a garbage man in 1972. A small stray cat jumped into the back of the hopper to look for food. I took him home and named him Saigon. This was the best thing. The second best thing was when someone threw out an old pair of skis. There was snow on the ground, and the other guy and I each took a ski and stood on it, holding onto the truck. It was great fun. The third best thing was when we found an entire case of Brill cream, and the other guy and I had Brill cream fights all day, making a total mess. I stripped off before going into my house after work. The worst thing was a garbage can that had live coals in it that started our truck on fire. Story 12. In the early 2000s, my best friend's dad was a garbage man. I used to hang out at their house a lot, and I remember him finding uncut sheets of holographic Dragon Ball Z trading cards in the trash and bringing them back. They were super cool to see. Story 13. I worked in the scrap metal business and have found not one, but two of three exact same brass statues of two bears engaging with each other. Story 14. Found a 55-inch TV next to the dumpster 4 years ago. It was missing one HDMI port on the side. It looked like someone might have tripped and ripped it out. Anyway, I opened it up, Googled the motherboard serial number, and found a brand new replacement for about $60 less than 25 minutes away. Needless to say, I called ahead on my day off, picked it up, and it works like a charm. Still use the TV to this day. 55 Sony 2012 là CD TV. I have Chromecast with Google TV hooked up to it now and it's awesome. 2021 and going strong. Story 15. I am not a garbage man, but I once scored a whole custom-built staircase from a dumpster. It was in perfect condition, but apparently built to the wrong specification. It worked great for my barn. Story 16. My father was a garbage man who also did cleanouts for homes and businesses, where they would tear apart the entire building and throw everything out in their dumpsters. He worked on a lot of really massive houses, some worth tens of millions of dollars, with one worth 40 million that wasn't even the permanent residence. Best things I got as a kid: a nearly unused trampoline with a net and everything, a go-kart that my dad's friend was able to fix up, and we used it all the time since I live on a dead end. Once, he cleaned out a deli that was closing down, and we had unlimited Snapple drinks and sodas of every flavor for almost a year. I would drink the Snapples while on the trampoline. I got a lot of use out of all three of those things in my childhood. Story 17. Not me, but my brother. Someone apparently threw out Grandpa's stuff from the attic after he passed away. This was the last scheduled pickup at the house, and everything was already moved out, with nobody living there. Driving an automated claw truck, my brother was irritated that there were these two bowling bags he had to get out to throw in the truck. He realized they seemed a bit heavy, so he opened them to see why. Inside, there was real silverware and flatware. He ended up selling it for scrap prices to a jeweler and got $3,000. Story 18. My father was a garbage man when I was born. I don't remember because I was like 3 months old, but my first dog was found in the trash. My dad stopped, picked up a box, and heard some shuffling inside. There were two puppies. My dad kept one, and the driver kept the other. They were brother and sister, my dad assumed. He kept the male and named him Jasper. He was literally my best friend growing up. I had him for 13 years, and my dad tells me the job was worth it just for that dog. He called the police and animal control on the residents but doesn't know what happened after that. All I know is I'm 37 and still love that dog so much. I'm so thankful my dad saved him and his sister. So it's my daughter's first birthday, and I'm only seeing all these comments now. Thank you to everyone who commented. A lot of people asked about the sister. Unfortunately, she only lived until she was 6. My dad stayed friends with the driver, and I guess she darted out in the road and was hit by a car. It was very sad, and I didn't know about that until I was a lot older. Our dog lived until he was 13 and then passed away of old age. But we did let them play together after they were separated. It's funny because my parents' first house was in a not-so-great part of town, but it was what they could afford. Anyway, across from our house was a train track, and I would love watching the trains pass. Well, my dad took a photo of us one time, both standing at the window and looking out at the train. Jasper would stand on his hind legs and watch with me. My wife actually had the photo blown up and custom framed for my birthday one year. It has to be one of my favorite photos. There are many things I'm sure of in life, but I'm positive Jasper lived a happy life after my dad found him. I'm not joking when I say he and I did everything together. We were inseparable. Thank you again to everyone for all the nice comments. Story 19. Not a garbage person, but I live in a large apartment complex. I could have furnished multiple apartments with all the stuff that gets thrown out here, and partially furnished mine. The best thing I've seen in the pile was one of those grandfather clocks you can make from a kit. Still looked very nice, but it needed some fixing to get it to run again. I'm still waiting to find a piano. I would like a piano. Story 20. My uncle was a garbage man and found a fully boxed Power Rangers Megazord toy. I don't remember which season or what, but it had been previously opened, and all of the parts were still inside. I don't remember if they sold it off, but it was very cool to see. A part of me feels like maybe a collector accidentally threw the whole figure away with the boxes, or perhaps some kid's parents got rid of it while cleaning up after a birthday or Christmas. I don't know, but it feels bad. Story 21. When I was growing up, my neighbor worked at the local council. One night, he knocked on the door trying to rehome a couple of kittens that one of the workers had apparently found at the local tip. All I remember was this absolute giant of a man, normally the most calm and chill person I'd ever met, absolutely seething with anger while holding a tiny ginger and white kitten in one of his hands. My guess is that someone had dropped off a box with them and hoping it wouldn't be noticed, which somehow seems like more of an irresponsible move and more effort than just leaving them somewhere public where they might be found by someone, even if you don't want to take them to a shelter. Anyway, as much as I begged and pleaded, I wasn't allowed to keep one because my dad claimed allergies. No trash kitty for me. Story 22. Finally, something I can contribute to. I do trash at apartments. In the year I've worked the job, I found and kept a couch, 2 desk chairs, a floor lamp, deck furniture, a TV stand, my cat, and various decorations I've given to my mom. Some things I've sold include a bike for $40, some outdoor vases for $30, a bed frame for $50, and an original Xbox with at least 80 games all in a box for $20 to my friend who collects old video games. But yeah, it's crazy what people throw away. Story 23. Oh man, my time to shine. I've been working at a waste transfer station, also known as a garbage dump, for many years. The worst I've seen, just garbage, not counting stuff brought to the hazardous materials department. A freezer stuffed with a skinned, rotting, headless deer carcass. We nearly called the cops before we realized it wasn't human. Used needles. The worst being a tie between porcupine couch and the lady who literally handed me a paper bag full of syringes she found during a park cleanup. Large container of old crystallized picric acid. The bomb squad had to deal with that one. The best. A high-end laptop in perfect condition except for a tiny crack on the liquid crystal display panel. Easy do-it-yourself repair that took $40 in 5 minutes. The thing would have cost $1,500 new. Enough brand new furniture to literally furnish my whole apartment. A high-end military-grade inflatable boat, brand new. The weirdest. A first-generation platelet counting machine, complete with weird tubes of bright green liquid and mercury. When I was prepping it for hazardous materials disposal, I had to call the company that bought the company that made it for some info. They never digitized the records, but the oldest repair technician still working was super excited because he remembered servicing them 50 years ago. Coffin. No body, just the coffin. Couldn't see anything wrong with it either. Buckets of testicles from a ranch that had been sitting out in the summer heat for a week. Smelled so bad my coworker hurled. That's not the weird part. The weird part is the guys wanted their buckets back. Do you know how bad it has to smell to make a garbage collector puke? And they wanted them back. The $10,000 duffel bag. A lady came in super upset because earlier she threw out a duffel bag that she didn't know her boyfriend kept cash in. Over $10,000 in cash. We never found the bag. 16 full-size barrels of old vegetable grease some guy had saved up in his garage. He was planning to make a biodiesel car or something. A lot of people are asking if we get to keep stuff. Efficiently, no. It's not against the law as far as I know, except for illegal stuff like drugs, but it's against our policy. However, workers do salvage things. As long as it's discreet and they're not selling it, management doesn't get involved. Selling stuff is a big no. We don't fight over stuff. In fact, we'll keep an eye out for things colleagues might need. Most of what we salvage is actually tools and stuff we use at the dump. I've also started a management-approved program to give away free household products that would otherwise be hazardous waste like paint, oil, cleaners, etc. Some dumps also run thrift stores to divert materials from landfill, but we don't have the space. Story 24. I used to remodel Sam's Clubs. If a case of juice that's meant to be sold is separated, they throw it out. I used to take it to shelters if I could catch them before it went in the dumpster. Display items like end tables, patio umbrellas, and in one case, a leather recliner with a small rip in the bottom are thrown out. Vegetables and fruit are thrown out. I took them home for horses, rabbits, and other animals.